The 49ers had a big win on Saturday against the Seattle Seahawks. They're now going to be facing the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to review that Seahawks win. We'll preview that Dallas Cowboys game. And then also, has Brock Purdy regressed? We're going to touch on all of that next on the Hammer and Nail Show. Hey everybody, it is Tuesday night. That means it is time for the Hammer and Nail Show. I am Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Oh, hold on. Technical difficulties with Big Jack over here. And there we go. So I'm Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. And as with me as always, Jessie Naylor. How you doing, Jessie?
I'm doing fantastic, Jack. Glad we could get the show back on track. It's a lot of rhyming I just did. But yeah, I'm excited to be back, man.
I got to say, every time I open up my show, and it's because I use the same one, whether it's with you or everyone else. I just love it. And, I know you put that together for me, and I really appreciate it. And it's awesome because I see a lot of other folks using some of the same video that you put together, which is cool too. It's imitation is the greatest form of flattery, and you did an awesome job putting that together. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was just thinking, I was like, man, next year, I mean, if Purdy's the starter, then I got to switch it up for you. So might have to fix it.
We might have to. We'll see what happens, and that's we're going to get into that as far as the regression possibility of Brock Purdy. And for those of you who only follow me on YouTube, I'll explain why we're talking about that when we get there. But first off, before we get started, I just want to shout out Moonman, the Malcat, Jan Stewart, Clarsard 49, Ian Sharp, Ellen Elizer, Moses, the original OG, Black 59 Razor.
I love that.
Over in the comments section. Jessie, real quick, that was a big game for the 49ers on Saturday against the Seahawks. Big win. What was your first takeaway from that?
Man, my first takeaway was Deebo Samuel. I mean, this is the crazy thing about Deebo Samuel is he's a guy that we relied on throughout all of last year into the postseason. Like, he was the guy offensively. And then Christian McCaffrey came in, and it just seemed like, I don't know, they didn't necessarily know what to do with Deebo. Then Purdy comes in, the offense elevates again, but Deebo gets injured. And so there's just a lot of question marks going into the playoffs, at least for me, was, okay, how important is Deebo still? I mean, I knew he would be important, but how much can they utilize him? How much has Christian McCaffrey eaten into his production? And we just really haven't seen it put together. And I would say we saw it put together this last week, which was, to me, the biggest takeaway that I had was, okay, this offense can produce and have everybody eat a little bit. You can have Kittle and Ayuk and Deebo and, even a little bit of Elijah Mitchell, CMC. I mean, everybody can get their fair share. And to me, that was the biggest thing, because if Deebo is firing on all cylinders along with Christian McCaffrey, I don't see how you slow this offense down. I think the only way this offense could slow down is if the quarterback has an absolute collapse, which I don't see happening.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. That's a good one. That wasn't the direction that I thought you'd start off with. Deebo Samuel was a big piece of it. It's funny because I saw I was watching ESPN. I don't usually watch ESPN all that, but I was watching it a little bit over the weekend. And I think it was last night, and they were showing because I was watching the game. That's probably what it was. And they were showing the stats for the team, right? And they have Deebo and Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy up there, and they show the all-purpose yards for Christian McCaffrey, 130 something, and they showed the receiving yards for Deebo, which is 130. But then if you take it and you just put the all-purpose yards for both those guys, Deebo Samuel was like 170 something all-purpose yards, and Christian McCaffrey almost 140. Those two alone put almost 300 yards in that game. And I agree with you. It was awesome to see. It was good to see Deebo Samuel do Deebo Samuel stuff again. We haven't seen that all season long. This was the first time where we really saw him break out. And, it was interesting the way that they utilized him. It felt to me like they wanted to make him a focal point early on in this game, really kind of take the focus away from Christian McCaffrey, maybe a little bit, and use Debo more because you saw him running the ball early on and those types of things. I thought he had a fantastic game. The other one that I want to shout out, I'm sure we'll hit Christian McCaffrey at some point, but I want to shout out Brandon Ayuk as well. I felt like Ayuk had the drop in the end zone on the Purdy throw, and he had the one play where he breaks off his route on a deep post. But I go back and I look at that, and beyond that, I thought that he had a hell of a game. He had 3 big catches for 70 plus yards. I think all of his catches were over 20-yard grabs. Basically, kind of running the same concept on all 3 of his catches over the middle, and then the blocking aspect of his game. That's the other piece. The long run for McCaffrey, he's blocking the guy from 120-yard line all the way down to the other 20-yard line, chasing the guy down and still blocking him. If the safety doesn't run McCaffrey down from behind when he cuts back up inside, it's a touchdown because Brandon Ayuk has worked his way all the way down there, right? And then the long touchdown for Deebo Samuel, that doesn't happen without it either, because he's blocking his butt off again, and he knows it on that one, because you could see it on my film review last night. I even mentioned it because you could see he's working him, and Samuel kind of sets him up with a little move inside before going outside, kind of helps him with his block. But you could tell that he was fired up because he knew he had blocked the heck out of that guy, because he took off sprinting through the end zone. He was happy they scored a touchdown, but I think he was pretty happy with himself too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Brandon Ayuk he's just stepped it up big time this year, not only on the field but off the field. I feel like he's starting to come into his own and be a leader, and something that I've taken notice of since training camp and conversation we've been having. So yeah, Brandon Ayuk, I mean, every step of the way, every turn, he's stepping his game up, and it was definitely noticeable, especially in the blocking game. Completely agree with you. Another guy I want to shout out is Deommodore Lenoir. I mean, this was a guy that a lot of people were worried about coming into the playoffs. You look at Seattle's 2 receivers, like, okay, well, Lenoir's not playing so great. Lockett especially could probably do some things in this game. And Deommodore Lenoir had a good little game. He had the interception there late. I mean, he played pretty dang good football. If you're going to get that production out of your number 2 corner, who was really supposed to be your number 4 outside corner to start this season, that's pretty damn good. So that right there hopefully should give him some confidence going into the game. I'll tell you, I don't know if you saw this, but he was liking every negative tweet about him. There was a piece done by NBC Sports, and a lot of people were like, get him off the team. He needs to not be starting. He's terrible. He's going to cost us the playoffs. And he's liking every single one of those messages, just to probably not to let them know that he knows, but more like, okay, this will fuel my fire. I need this kick in the pants to get going. This is the type of player that I am. And I think all of that negativity, he harnessed it and used it in a productive manner on Saturday. And I love to see it. If we're gonna dog him for not playing well and being worried, we have to give him credit when he's doing his thing. And he definitely did his thing on Saturday. You're muted, Jack.
That's what I'm doing.
Gotcha.
I do my best work when I'm on mute.
Yeah.
But the whole thing was, the thing with Deommodore Lenoir, that was one of those where I felt like, I know that he struggled against Vegas, and then he had the flea flicker where he was, what happened there. But you look at that guy's numbers over the course of the year, from the time he moved to the outside cornerback position, and his numbers were on par with those of Travarius Ward. I put that out there after that Raider game. I don't think we got a chance to do our normal show after, later on. It wasn't, but either way. And I thought that he was playing pretty well. And I thought for the most part, this is a guy who's getting ripped on, even though he's had a pretty good year. And then I was really excited to see what he did. And then, to see Travarius Ward struggled on the one play, gives up the deep shot. And I kind of cracked a joke on Twitter about it, which is, whatever. But the whole thing, you look at both of those cornerbacks, and you're shouting out Deommodore Lenoir for coming back basically from everybody ripping him. Travarius Ward went out there and he gave up the big throw. And there's a lot of people this week who are feeling like he didn't play all that well. I felt like he was getting eaten up a little bit as I was watching the game. the more I watched and thought about what was happening there and actually kind of paying attention to the numbers that were going against him, he gave up the one deep shot. The rest of the game, he was on point, keeping everything in front of him. And that's the biggest key for the 49ers. When they can keep the offense in front of them, they're going to be okay. It's when they get behind them, like on the deep shot, and they only gave up one. The rest of the game, they kept everybody in front of them. I'm talking about the secondary, and I think that was a big key to their turning point.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. I'm having a little chuckle. Black 59 Razor not only has the elite name, but he has a really funny comment. He said, Jessie, who do you want to win the NFC now that Tampa's been eliminated?
Yes. He brings in the good comment.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. What else for me? I think those are probably the biggest things. Those are the things that I noticed that I really took away from the game. Obviously, I mean, we're going to talk about Purdy and, has he regressed and whatever else. But overall, I think the 49ers did exactly what they should do. I think the score being what it was and the game playing out the way that it did in the first half is really indicative of just playing a team for a third time. That team knowing exactly what you want to do, that team being used to your physicality. They didn't have the horses ultimately to get it done. But I think when you play a team 3 times, yeah, the team that wins the first 2, if it's a 2-0 series, does usually win the third matchup. But that doesn't mean that the third matchup's not tough. And in this situation, the matchup was very tough, at least to start. And, I think a lot of people kind of overblew D'Amico Ryans and the defense not doing what they needed to do. It was really one quarter. Seattle had 1 quarter. It was the second quarter. Outside of that, they really didn't do anything. And the 49ers defense and offense executed damn near flawlessly in the second half.
Yeah, and I think we can talk about that a little bit more when we get into this game against Dallas, because I think there were some things that they did that Seattle was doing there that if Cowboys can duplicate it, it's going to give the 49ers trouble. And they have they have a better quarterback than Geno Smith. We're talking about the things that we take away from the game. That's one of the things I take away is the defense. They were struggling with the run in the first half. There's no doubt about it. They were struggling with Kenneth Walker on the ground. They were struggling with DJ Dallas on the ground a little bit, even the runs from Geno Smith. And that led into the second half as well. That opening drive of the second half, they drove the ball right down the throat of the 49ers until they got into the red zone. They had the holding call, which brought on a completion. So instead of having 2nd and 3 from the 7, it becomes 1st and 20. And then that's when things fell apart. And you have the Charles Omenihu play and want to shout him out as well, because that was the turning point of the game, was the hold followed by the sack fumble from Omenihu, recovered by Nick Bosa, and the offense going down and scoring. That was the game. That's where the whole game turned, everything about this. And that's where the 49ers finally got the Seahawks out of the ability to keep running the ball, I felt.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And yeah, that Omenihu play, actually, that's another guy that we could give a little bit of a shout out to as well. I mean, he did have the one where he missed the sack and it resulted in what it resulted in, but he had the sack later, the strip sack. I mean, Omenihu's come up big now for the 49ers in some really crucial spots, and he's pretty dang good. I mean, that's probably a guy that likely the 49ers lose him this offseason. That's unfortunate because he's young. He's starting to come into his own, but this is what Kasarik does. Kasarik gets people paid, and Omenihu's probably the next one to get paid somewhere else.
Yeah, because this is 2 years in a row. He did the same thing last year against the Cowboys in that wild card game. He had a big day out there as well. I think I put some numbers up yesterday. I think it's 3.5 sacks the last 2 in the 2 wild card games combined, 2 forced fumbles that the 49ers recovered, a few quarterback hits and all that kind of stuff. So some really good stuff there. And then before we get off of the defense, there was another one that was a good quote on here. I'm trying to see where it is. Here it is. It was from Moonman. He says, "Hey guys, how's it going? What did you all think of our inconsistent pass rush on Saturday? I was at the game and seen Bosa out more than often this game." I'll take this one really quick first. And I was asked this question from my mailbag and I wrote about it. And so I'm watching the defensive film. I don't think that Seattle did anything special against Nick Bosa. I didn't see any extra chipping. I didn't see really anything against him in the first half. They might have done that a little bit more in the second half, but in the first half, when the things were going well for Seattle, they were just straight up playing him. And I think the reason that we didn't see Bosa make the impact that we normally do is because the Seahawks committed to the run in the first half. They ran the ball 20 times. I think there was 18 called runs plus 2 scrambles by the quarterback. So they were very balanced. 18 runs, 13 called passes. And I think by being committed to the run the way that they were, they forced the 40, they weren't allowing Bosa to just tee off, and because they weren't getting themselves into third and long situations very often. So it's not that, run at the quarterback that you normally see. And when teams are running the ball and they start doing play action off of it, and rolling and stuff like that, it makes it really hard to get upfield. And I think we saw that against Bosa on Saturday, and we saw that same thing kind of play out against Bosa in Las Vegas until the end when they started to throw the ball more, and he was able to, pick up the first round left tackle and drive him into the quarterback a couple of times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also there was a really, really good breakdown by Brett Coleman, and he talked about Bosa being Defensive Player of the Year. This was 3 weeks ago. And it was actually after the last Seattle game. And he talked about Seattle's left tackle having a tell that Bosa picked up on early on how he was going to protect the quarterback on particular dropbacks. And Bosa knew the counter right away. Well, I guess that made it back to Seattle headquarters, and they did address it and fix that issue. When I did my behind enemy lines with the Seattle content creator, he said that was something that was actually talked about publicly. So it is something that he worked on and he fixed. And so Bosa, who had a field day the first time they played, or I should say the second time they played, because of that, I think wasn't as effective, because I think their tackles are actually pretty good. And if you don't have a tell, then it makes your game a little bit harder. You add in the fact that they were very balanced with the run game, and I also think they did a good job of getting the ball out quick, too. I mean, that's another way that you nullify the pass rush. I think they did a good job of spreading the 49ers out, getting the ball out quick. And it was just a product of how it worked. But Bosa also does free up other people. We talked about a minute who having a big game. I mean, let's not forget, there's a lot of attention on guys like Bosa. And so that does give one-on-one on the other side of the line or in the middle of the line. And so even though Bosa is not getting home, just him being on the field helps others get home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And real quick, on a super chat, I want to hit this one up. Big Jeremy, I haven't heard from you for a while, Jeremy. Hope you're doing well. He says, what up, Jack and Jess? We looking pretty good. Good to see you, Jeremy. I haven't seen your name pop up in the comment section for a while. So I hope you're doing really well. Hope you're doing pretty good yourself.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen Jeremy.
Yeah, I haven't seen him here. So then here's another one here. We got 2.0. Another super chat says, really nervous about this game. Cowboys +4 looks like the smarter bet to me. Think it comes down to a field goal. Hope Maher brings the same level of focus that he had in Tampa Bay.
I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
That was some fun stuff, right? That was
He's got the yips, man. I feel like when kickers get the yips, they struggle, and that could be a forever thing. So we'll see.
That's right. Let's go. This is one of my favorites. Look at this guy, Mark Swarbrick. He comes in. He says he scored 4 touchdowns, and bumbling Jack says he's regressed. You're an idiot, Mark. You don't even know what I'm going to say yet, and you're telling me that. And you know what?
It's literally the title is a question, not a statement. Like it's a question, not a statement. And the reason the question is being posed is not because either of us are posing it. It's actually coming from a very well-known person in the community. So chill out a little bit. Huh? Stick around. Find out what we actually say about the situation.
It's okay. I like this kind of stuff. I'm not like I said, like I told, I had this last week when I was doing a show with somebody else on my channel, I think. It might be even working by myself here. I say, you know what? I'm going to tell you guys that you're full of shit. You can tell me when I'm full of shit. And that's a bullshit comment because you don't even know what I'm going to say yet. So let's move on. Reading is
fundamental. Question marks mean things.
Yes. Question mark. Typically when you have a question mark, it means it's a question, not an answer. And, let's get into the next topic. So the 49ers, that was the first half was tight. The second half that we ran away with it. It was a pretty awesome second half all around.
Yep.
Let's move on though. Let's look at this Dallas game because I think this is a game that we both see it somewhat similar. And I had put out a tweet before I think it was before the final game of the season, kind of saying, if the 49ers were the 3 seed, that might be the better path. I was thinking that you get Minnesota. I thought that for the 49ers that Minnesota would be able to beat the number 7 seed. 49ers are going to beat the Giants. They go into Minnesota and Dallas goes out to, both of us kind of had talked about this becoming a 49ers Cowboys championship game. Instead, we're going to get this in the NFC divisional round game. When you look at this matchup between the 49ers, one of the things I've seen on Twitter today was, the 49ers are a better team than they were last year, but the Cowboys aren't. And I'm not sure if I agree with that. What do you say?
I completely disagree with that. I think both teams are much improved over last year. I mean, you can look at numbers and say, okay, well, Dallas was the number 1 offense and, they're not this year and Dak's throwing more picks or what have you. But just overall, I mean, the safety play of Dallas is much improved. Even the corner spot opposite of Diggs is much improved. And they've definitely cycled through to figure out who that player is going to be. But even as they're cycling through, the play has gotten better. I think overall, to me, Zeke looks better, more explosive than he was last year. I felt like I remember going into that playoff game last year and we were talking with Cowboys fans on Twitter Spaces and whatnot. And I just kept asking him, like, is there something wrong with Zeke? He just doesn't have any explosion. I feel like he's got some of that back this year. And then Tony Pollard is a completely different player than what he was last year. I mean, he's a big, big part of this team. Schultz is coming to his own. I think their offensive line has done a good job as well. So for me, I feel like Dallas is also better. And, Parsons is in year 2. I don't know. I think Dallas is a much improved team as well. Unfortunately for them, the 49ers are as well. And that's what it comes down to. So you add in the fact that the 49ers are also improved. They're the ones with the rest in the home game and all those other things. I don't know if it bodes well for Dallas. It probably doesn't. But I think that we are also going to see a better Dallas Cowboy team on Sunday than what we saw last year as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then, like Josh says here, Curse is injured. That's an MCL sprain. That's one of their top safeties. I don't think we'll see where if he goes. I'm sure they'll try to push him to go this week because of the time of the year. So we'll see what happens. We'll get
they said he actually has a really good chance to play. I mean, it's probably a grade 1, which you can play on that. So we'll see.
Yeah, and so I'm saying we'll get a better clue of that once he start practicing. He might miss a day, and then I would expect to see him be one of those guys that's a non-participant tomorrow and limited the next couple of days and all that kind of stuff. But I think they're going to try to get him out there. That would make sense. I look at this and I think that the Cowboys are an improved team. And I think really for the Cowboys, the best thing that happened to them this year was Dak Prescott getting injured in week 1. I think I know that I'm not saying because of Dak getting injured. I'm saying because of what it forced them to do. And with him being out, it forced them to run the ball more. And I think they figured out that, hey, we're a pretty good run team. We don't have to rely on the quarterback to be such a big part of what we do. We've got 2 good backs here in Elliott and I'm blanking on his name right now, but
Pollard.
Pollard, and Pollard's the Pro Bowler, right? Wasn't he a Pro Bowler?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so you've got 2 good backs there, and I think that really helped them out. And I think we saw that. We both had a similar. We both even had a similar thing happen to us last night. I sent out a tweet as the game was going on that if the Cowboys can be this balanced against the 49ers, the 49ers defense is going to have some trouble. You've tweeted something out a little bit later, kind of did the same effect about just being a really good Dallas team and everything like that. And people are jumping all over the place and about the 49ers offense and how good that is. Well, I didn't say anything about 49ers offense. I think the offense should be okay. The 49ers offense is very talented. But the point of my tweet was Dallas brings everything that's given the 49ers fits this year on offense. They have a good running game, not just one. They have 2 good running backs. They have a good tight end that forces you to have to cover. Last year against the 49ers, he was actually their leading receiver in that NFC wildcard game. And then they have, a couple of good wide receivers on the outside. Well, not really so much on the outside. They both T.Y. Hilton is more of an inside guy, and so is CeeDee Lamb. I think he's a little bit more of an inside guy too. But they have some good receivers, so they have that threat at multiple levels. Very much, I think when you look at that, the next best team that they've done that's they've played recently that shows you that is against the Raiders. The Raiders had that as well. They had that really good outside receiver, really good tight end, really good back, so that they could stay balanced. And I think that's what you see with Dallas, and I think that's where Dallas has improved offensively from last year. And then on defense, their pass rush is just better. Their pass rush is getting to the quarterback more often. They have a much higher sack percentage than a year ago. They're all over the quarterback.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is I feel like people put way too much stock in regular season. It's like, well, just 2 weeks ago, Washington this and that, or Dallas fans are like, well, the Raiders did. Listen, this is a whole new season. What I can say is, we've over the years, the NFC East has been labeled the NFC least, but 3 of those 4 teams that are remaining are from the NFC East. So, Dallas is battle tested. They've played those other 2 teams twice. Those other 2 teams have played the other 2 twice, and so forth and so on. So, when 3 of the 4 final teams are from one division and you've played in those games, then, I think that helps them as well. The division being much stronger, just being battle tested. I also, for Dak's sake, we talk about the Washington game. I think that was probably the best thing that could have happened for him. He talked about how that lit a fire under him coming into this game. He felt like he had to prove everybody wrong, and he played really, really good football. So, I think Dallas is, Dallas is a good team. I do expect that the 49ers win the game, but I think the 49ers will be better for it. I think the 49ers, because I look at Dallas, and let's say it's Philadelphia they see the next round. I think Dallas is a slightly downgraded version of Philly, but a lot of similarities there. A lot of skilled players, a lot of just overall good football being played. And I think it's a good test to get them ready to go play a Philadelphia Eagle team that, is extremely talented as well. So,
yeah. I think, and then again, that's why it would have been good to have those 2 teams play each other before the Flyers had to play either one of them. Goldblood says, "Come on, Jack, you said this last week for Seattle." You're right. I did say it last week that the Seattle could give the Flyers trouble if they committed to the ground, and they did in the first half. They were 18 runs to 13 passes in their calls. They were ahead at the halftime, 17-16. The difference was in the second half. They ran the ball just 5 times, and that's where the 49ers pulled away. Once the 49ers, the 49ers were able to get the lead, and then Seattle had a nice balanced drive, got them down there. We already talked about the fumble and everything like that. And then once that fumble occurred and the 49ers went up 2 touchdowns, Seattle abandoned the run game, and that's where from that point on it was the 49ers contest, because the 49ers are going to dominate teams that want to just do one thing or the other. That's also why I wanted to see Tampa Bay win last night, because I felt like Tampa Bay was the best possible scenario for the 49ers that was left, because of the fact that they just don't run the ball. And Tom Brady, for as great as he's been in his career, poor guy just can't move. I mean, he can move around in the pocket a little bit, but he's not a threat to run like what you're going to get this week with Dak Prescott.
No, and that was the other thing that I noticed watching the Cowboys is Dak he's mobile again. It's been a while since you've seen that from him, and so Dak Prescott that's willing to move and can take off. I mean, that adds the extra element for sure. And it doesn't have to be crazy, but if you get a first down run on a 3rd and 7, that type of situation, it can be backbreaking. So I think that is just that added element that Dallas hasn't had. And certainly I don't think Dallas had it all last year. He seemed unwilling to move and run once he broke the pocket. And I think a lot of that was hesitation due to the leg injury. And then he struggled to come back a little bit, had some lower extremity injuries that he battled throughout the year. Well, you get another year removed from that leg injury, and all of a sudden he's willing to move again. And I think that's an added element.
Yeah, and we saw it last night against Tampa, and we'll see if he can do that against the 49ers. I think he probably can. That's one of the things that just gives the 49ers just a little bit of fits. But the one good thing about the 49ers is usually when they have a good read on you in terms of their preparation before the week, they're going to be able to be okay with it. I think it's more of an issue when, like against the Raiders, I don't think they were ready for what they were going to get out of Jared Stidham. And they rebounded after that and so on. So I think this game is going to be interesting.
For sure.
I think it's one of those games. I see a lot of people talking, about this being a blowout. The only way I see this maybe being a blowout, the biggest thing that I see in the favor of the 49ers in this game is the is the schedule. They played on Saturday and then had 2 days off before the game coming up. And I saw a stat today where when a team with a 5-day break is playing a team that with a 7-day break, their record is 6-19. I think that's the biggest advantage for the 49ers coming into this game.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a big advantage. I also think San Francisco just frankly is the better team. So, you got that in your favor too.
I do think it's going to be, we'll see. We're going to find out because I think it's an interesting matchup for the 49ers. They do a lot of things really well. We just haven't seen them really be challenged again on the ground. And I know, so I put this out earlier today. They faced 6 teams this season who have run for 99 yards or more, and that's including quarterback scrambles. In those 6 games, the 49ers are 2-4. Now, and during those 4 losses, and all 4 of those losses, the 49ers, there's a couple of things that go, play into it. There's, turnovers is another piece of it as well. They had the 2 wins for the 49ers have come in their last 2 times that it's happened, Las Vegas, and then on Sunday against Seattle. But the only thing that scares me is the one when they did it in Vegas. Vegas put up 34 points against them, and that's where I think if that could be a problem because you're not playing against a team like Vegas their Vegas defense. I mean, their defense is garbage. So you're not playing a team like that. So if your defense is struggling the way it was, this could become one of those games like even like the game between the Eagles and the Cowboys just a few weeks ago where it's like a 40-34 game. I think that's the only where that's something that I'm really looking forward to watching play out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that the 49ers should be able to exploit, though, is on the opposite end. Dallas struggles stopping the run. And the 49ers absolutely, as we know, can run the ball. So I would expect a heavy run style, a lot of play action. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Kyle comes out and goes play action like 3 plays in a row to start the game and just scares them with the run game, knowing that that's what they're I got to imagine they're going to stack the box. They're going to try to stop the run game. They see CMC, they see Debo, they see Mitchell. And I think Shanahan is fantastic at that. He sets people up really all year long. And I could see him giving them some eye candy early and just allowing Purdy to go over the top, with some of those deep ends and those types of things. So I'm curious to see how Shanahan starts out, but I wouldn't be shocked if they come out and throw the ball, play action 3 straight times, something crazy like that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the things I appreciate. Like I said earlier, I don't mind telling people in my comment section that they're full of beans. Just I don't mind telling you're full of beans when we're on Twitter, right? Right. And so, but it's also fun when you put something out there and instead of somebody just telling you don't know what you're talking about, when they actually take the time to look it up and respond with something that's intelligent. And that's one of the things that I had somebody hit me back with actually on the drive home. I saw it on Twitter where he sent me I think it happened like 8 times to the Cowboys, and they're 3-5 this season in the games in which they've given up over, their biggest yardage on the ground. Yeah. And so that all plays into it. And that helps me be a little bit smarter in the things that I'm thinking about the game too. Cause you're right. I think looking at everything here, it's very easy, at least for me, because I just don't go into these games believing the 49ers are going to blow everybody out.
Right.
The argument for Dallas is a little scary, but the more that I sit back and I look at some of these things, like what he sent to me, what you told me, and the travel and all those kind of things, I think that plays in the 49ers' favor because that's what calms me down, I guess is what I should say. And then you look at the travel thing, which we talked about already. Not only the record, but remember that's what the 49ers faced last year. They were on the road 4 weeks in a row. Their 4th game being the NFC Championship game, and that's where they finally lost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's crazy is I want to rewind a little bit because there was a lot of talk on whether they 2nd seed, 3rd seed. It'd be great to get the 1st seed. I think after watching the way that Seattle game started and the fact that they were able to get out of it healthy, that's also key, by the way. Mm-hmm. I think not having the 1st seed for this particular team, for Brock Purdy specifically, was paramount to their success long-term in this playoff run because we saw, a little bit early. I don't know if it was rain. I don't know if it was jitters, whatever, combination of the two. But if they had started out that slow this week, and this was the 1st game, something crazy could happen. And I like that they were able to get through that game and an opponent that they were clearly better than, a team that was game, gave everything that they had. Purdy was able to come back, bounce back from those struggles. And I think ultimately for this team, playing on Wild Card Weekend might end up being better than had they sat and rested for a week.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That is a really good point. And that's a perfect lead into the last part of our show, right? Which is really what we titled the show. And let me bring that up really quick so that everybody knows what we're talking about. And it's, has Brock Purdy regressed? It's perfect timing because, like you said, he got to play a game this week, got to get his feet wet. And, I looked at his game and I agree. I think the opening was a little rough for sure. For me, when I went back and looked at the film, the one thing that was good about it was, he's going to the right place with two of the balls. The ball to Debo, just a bad throw. The one to Jennings on the corner, that's late. The one that, for me, that scared me the most was the throw over the slant on third down where he's throwing the slant to Jennings before Jennings even out of his break and the linebacker's able to get a hand on it. That's the one to me that's just like, especially when you had
the one where CMC was lined up to the left and kind of ran an in.
Yeah, that's where the ball should have gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Is that one. And that's like where, he looked at to me, it felt like that was just a predetermined play from Brock Purdy instead of just letting it go. I feel like he decided pre-snap what he was going to do. And we haven't really seen him do that all that often. I think that was what worried me the most about it or made me think the most. So, the reason I put this up there, it's not because, we'll get into our feelings on it, but there was a content creator that came out earlier last week, right after the game, a couple days ago, and said this about Brock Purdy. He said that he had good poise, his ability to extend plays with a breath of fresh air, but otherwise I think he's regressed since his first start. He's talking about Brock Purdy. I think it is one of the goofiest comments that I've ever heard, but I'll let you go ahead and go take this one first.
Yeah, first of all, let me say Alex Rollins, one of the best in the business. I mean, he is phenomenal. He's got a ton of subs for very good reason. I've had him on my channel before. He's extremely intelligent, does a lot of work with Kurt Warner. So he's very well respected in this game, and he should be. I mean, he's good. He's really, really good, and he knows what he's talking about. I felt like, and he made a video a few weeks ago talking about Brock Purdy, and I thought he made some really good points in that video. He does a good job of pointing out the things he does well. He does a good job of pointing out the things that he needs to improve on, or things that he may struggle with his whole career because of some physical limitations. But one thing that I don't agree with is that Brock Purdy has regressed since the Miami game. I think Brock Purdy has done a good job. He has passed every test that has been thrown his way. Now, we can argue or debate on whether or not those tests have been stout, based off some of the teams they've played and the defenses. But that's not for Brock Purdy to decide. He's only out there to play the games that are in front of him, and he's doing everything he needs to do. And I'll tell you this, he struggled in the first half. I think anybody that argues that doesn't know what they're watching. However, if I were to say, okay, at halftime, he needs to come out and do X, Y, Z to bounce back and play a perfect second half, he would have exceeded those expectations, right? Like, he didn't play a perfect second half. He played a better than perfect second half is the way that I looked at it. So he more than made up for the struggles that he had early. And again, I look at that and say, first playoff game, it was raining early. I think that probably had something to do with it as well. I know that nobody wants to give another quarterback on this team any grace for playing in rain, but I'll give Brock Purdy grace because I would expect to do that with any quarterback. And I think that those things factored in. But once he settled in and he got comfortable and Kyle Shanahan just let him kind of go crazy and do his thing, I mean, listen, he had a really, really good second half, and that bodes well for the 49ers. So I don't think he's regressed at all. In fact, looking at that Seattle game, I'd have to go back to double check to make sure my numbers are right, but I'm pretty sure his average depth of target was around 12.5 yards, which is almost double what he's been to this point. I mean, he's been in the 6.5, like 6.7 average depth of target to this point, which is pretty dink and dunk. I mean, it's less than even Jimmy, believe it or not. But in that game, he nearly doubled it. So he was taking his shots downfield. I think Kyle did a great job of dialing things up and getting him some open looks, but he was hitting those open looks. So no, I don't think that Purdy's regressed at all. I think Purdy has passed every test that has been thrown his way. He's doing what he needs to do to help this team win, elevate the offense even. So no, I don't buy into that at all. But again, all the respect in the world goes to Alex Rollins. I do think he's one of the best in the business. I just disagree with him on this.
Yeah, and I don't agree with it either. I do. It's easy to watch Brock Purdy and understand where some of his weaknesses are. I think the biggest weakness that he has is his tendency, which I think we finally are starting to see, which is that when he gets pressure in his face, his first instinct is to go to his left. Beyond that, there's really not a tendency where he wants to throw the ball necessarily. He's going to throw to the open spot. But that's the one thing that I've noticed, and I think that gave him a little bit of there was when you look back at that first half last week, there was only twice. The only time it really became an issue was right there at the end of the first half when he did it a couple of times back to back. Because the first time that he did it, if he just steps up into the pocket and does like what he did on the first possession or earlier on in that second quarter where he just takes off running for 13 yards, I think if he just steps up in the pocket, there was a running lane right there, that kind of thing. That's the one area that I would be frustrated with him, is that initial response to want to get out to his left. Beyond that, everything that Purdy's doing is I think pretty solid. And the other thing that kind of comes to it is, he's not big time throws. He doesn't have a lot of big time. Well, he doesn't have to have a lot of big time throws because he's got guys open. And here's the thing, I know he hits Jawan Jennings down the left sideline, and there's people talking about how it's a bad throw. I don't really give a rip if it's a bad throw. And the reason I say that is because how many times have we seen 49er quarterbacks this year? And I say quarterbacks, not just one. How many times have we seen 49er quarterbacks this year miss guys on leak routes? It's happened with both the other quarterbacks that started before it. And for him to be able to hit it, and that's not an easy throw. I talked about it yesterday on the film breakdown. He's running stretch play action to his left, and then he's having to plant his foot, spin around, and throw the ball. It's very easy to understand why it gets a little bit too far inside. Plus, he's throwing it to the left, which means when you throw the ball and you're right-handed and you're throwing to your left side, the centrifugal force of the ball is going to bring it back inside. So he's got to throw that thing a little bit more to the outside so it gets where it's supposed to be. And, all those things considered, it was a good throw. And I know it looked like a tight throw with the safety. That safety was never in a position where he was going to pick it off. He was in a position where he was going to maybe take his head off. But even then, the free safety was basically in an, oh shit, I'm not in the right spot mode. I've got to get over there and try to hit this guy so I can knock the ball away. Will that be an issue down the road? It could be an issue on Sunday if he does it again and it's a little bit further inside or something like that. I mean, we've seen him not make perfect throws a few times. He didn't make it. Go back to the game against Seattle. The interception that should have been right over the middle. That's a ball that's just not a good placement. So we've seen him do things like that in the past. But to say he's regressed, I don't think he's regressed. The only way that I could see somebody thinking that he's regressed is you look at the film from his first start against Tampa and you see the ball going down the field. And they're not going down the field as much. It's more intermediate. But that's kind of what the 49ers passing game is for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, realistically, I think he's been extremely consistent. There's definitely been throws in every game that, could have been picked or turnover worthy plays or what have you, but he's doing his thing, man. I think it's tough because I think there's two different ways to judge Brock Purdy, right? And both of them are completely different scales. There's the last pick in the draft, Brock Purdy, who's definitely exceeding every single expectation you could ever want. If he does nothing else and for the rest of his life in the NFL, if tomorrow he retires, he's already exceeded expectations for where he was picked and all those things. But then there's most of this fan base thinks that he's going to be the forever quarterback and he's already the franchise guy after 6 starts. And so, how are we judging him there? And that's when you can get a little bit nitpicky because it's like, okay, well, if that's how we're going to talk about him, then that's what I've got to judge. And so, it's all in the eye of the beholder and how you're looking at things. And so I think you could hear two different conversations depending on what the context of that conversation is.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to a conversation that you and I had maybe before. I don't remember, maybe it was this offseason, maybe it was even last year. I don't remember when it was, but where I had talked about how, like with Trey Lance, I was going to talk about Trey Lance. I was going to analyze Trey Lance as if he was the starting quarterback in the NFL, just like I would do with Brock Purdy. And and I think that's the way that you do it. And as a starting quarterback in the NFL, he's been playing damn well, and he has a lot of talent around him. But we've never seen, even with the talent, we hadn't seen this offense get to the point to where it is right now. When Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback and these guys, it was maybe a little bit of still growing pains and learning what to do with Christian McCaffrey.
Seriously.
Yeah, but even then, I really think that they had maxed that out with Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think it was going to continue to grow. I don't think they're still getting I don't think they're getting the number of points that they're getting now with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think they're still scoring in the 25, 30, enough to win these games, but they're not scoring 30 plus and 40 with Jimmy Garoppolo out there. And the biggest difference between these two guys is, one, the ability to go down the field. I said it before, I still stick by it. I think Brock Purdy's arm is a little bit stronger than Garoppolo's, and that's why he's throwing balls to every area of the field. But the other one is his feet and his ability to get out of the pocket, his ability to make defenses, hurt defenses with his legs. That's something that they haven't had, and you're seeing it play out. And it's one of the reasons why I know there's people out there who are comparing him to Joe Montana. I kind of said it the other day on one of the throws from the film review that I was doing, I think against Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And Greg Cosell mentioned that he was talking to some coaches around the league, and there was one who mentioned that an old time guy that said that that's who he reminded him of. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's year one. What's going to happen next year, I don't really care at this point. I just hope that these two guys go into training camp and either compete, or the Flyers get a hell of a deal on a trade with Trey Lance or whatever. But I don't, that's a really good argument that we can have in about 3 or 4 weeks, depending on how far the season goes.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. That's where I'm at with it. For me, I'm just enjoying this. I'm having a lot of fun. I think the season got a lot more fun once Purdy took over. I couldn't do the Jimmy thing anymore, and I knew the way that was going to end. I knew it wasn't going to end well for the 49ers. I knew he wasn't good enough to win a Super Bowl. And, frankly, Purdy is playing a lot better than him. And so because of that, they have a really good chance at this. They're one of the Final Four teams in the NFC. And, for me, I'm enjoying it as a fan. And, it was kind of cool. I'll share just a quick story. So my son's 8 years old. He's a Ravens fan, mainly because of playing Madden and liking Lamar Jackson running fast and whatever. But he's turned into a Ravens fan. And it was really cool watching games with my son this weekend. Him seeing, the emotion from me on Saturday, the ups and downs of that game. And then on Sunday, watching that game with him. And that was his first playoff experience rooting for his team, and the ups and downs and the emotions he went through. And then, talking through all that with him. And it was just a really, really cool experience. So I say all that to say that I'm enjoying this time right now. I'm enjoying the playoffs, and I just hope that it keeps going. That's all that I would hope for. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, it has been fun for me. It became a lot of fun when they went out and picked up Christian McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
I just enjoyed I enjoyed watching Christian McCaffrey play at Stanford. I felt that I knew what he was going to bring to this team, and it's been all that and more. So it's been a lot of fun. The change that he brings and that extra element that he brings to this offense is wild. And the Alan Elizer one there, I don't do a good job, and my guy isn't in the chat tonight, reminding me to tell everybody to like and subscribe. But please hit that like button as you guys are here. Randall Riley, he's a member of the Toolbox. That's the other thing that we do here. We got the members, and he says Niners were fine with Jimmy and Trey and had them compete, so it won't be any different next season with Trey and Brock. Period. You're probably right. That's most likely the direction that this thing's going to take.
For sure.
Bleed Red and Gold, thank you for the super chat. He says, I don't know if his arm is necessarily stronger, but his throwing mechanics and pocket awareness is much better than Jimmy 100%.
Yes.
His
confidence.
There's confidence. There's for the most part his stuff in the pocket. He does stand in there better than Garoppolo with some of the things. Garoppolo just doesn't move, so that's partly why he was so good at throwing from the pocket. Right? He wasn't really a threat to take off running, so he wasn't going to bounce and run and those kind of things. So that's different. I don't know. I looked at the one throw to Ayuk the other day, and he threw, I think, 50+ yards in the air. So that was a good one. We'll see how it all turns out. I think if we look at this game, I think the 49ers are probably going to win it, and I just think it's going to be really tight. It's going to be close. Jay Tan made a comment earlier. I want to make sure I hit that. I want to say, if you guys want to watch a film review, you don't have to go anywhere else. You've got it right here on this channel. I do every game. I didn't do the last week's game because of the flooding and stuff that I wasn't able to do it. But if you just look on my channel, you'll find every offensive snap that Brock Purdy's taken this year, every 49er snap with the exception of the game against the Cardinals. So check that out. We're going to be heading out real quick, but Jessie, what have you got going on? And real quick, also last thing, I should have said this before I moved off, but Bleed Red and Gold, thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Jessie, what do you got coming up?
Yeah, so 3 minutes. Come over to Last Second Sports. We're going to continue the conversation. I've got Sunil on. It's Tuesday, so Sunil and I are going to be talking about the Seahawks game a little bit and just overall previewing what's to come for the San Francisco 49ers. So definitely tap in over there, Last Second Sports.
That is going to be a conversation that's going to be so real. All right.
Sunil.
All right, everybody. I want to say thank you for taking the time to check out the show. Make sure you hit that like button before you leave. And if you're watching this, you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that little subscribe button. Try to bring you guys 49ers content, everything as it's happening. I'll be at practice tomorrow. I'll be able to get an update of what day one of preparation for the divisional game is going to look like and all that as well. So please hit the like button, subscribe on your way out. Get over to Jesse's channel as well, Last Second Sports. The details are in the comment section, in the description of the show. So make sure you get over there, check him out, and like and subscribe over there as well. So everybody have a great rest of your Tuesday. Keep it locked into the channel, like and subscribe. Jesse, thank you so much.
Absolutely, brother.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Jeremy, there you are again. Life's good, brother. Awesome. There you are. I'm gonna put that up there. I got to do that. Thank you, Jeremy. I'm glad you're doing well. Have a good one, everybody. Take care. Thanks, Jeremy.